There comes a moment in any horror film, usually after the screaming has stopped, when you think that it's safe to peek and you're going to be just fine. Well, it isn't, and you're not, because most horror movies like to have the last laugh. That's because in recent years, most releases come with a post-credits stinger, thanks primarily to the MCU retaining game-changing twists and gags to drop after the movie itself has wrapped. While it's more popular than ever because of this, though, it's not a modern idea, as forms of post-credit stingers go back as far as Night of the Living Dead's still frame credits. The post-credit twists here are much more substantial than that, though, designed to reframe everything about what you've just seen, often in terrifying, terrifying ways. I'm Josh from WhatCulture.com, and these are 9 post-credits horror movie scenes that changed everything. Number 9. House on Haunted Hill, 1999. House on Haunted Hill is a 1999 remake of the 1959 Vincent Price classic, starring Jeffrey Rush, Famke Janssen, and numerous other 90s actors you probably at least half remember. In the movie, Stephen Price, an amusement park mogul, has set a challenge: survive one night in the derelict psychiatric institute for the criminally insane and receive $1 million. Yeah, cue Dr. Evil. It's a safe bet that not all of these people who enter are going to make it through till morning, and before long, the blood is flowing along with the 90s Marilyn Manson-esque nu metal soundtrack of the day. To be fair though, that is a pretty solid choice because this one is more of a nasty music video than it is a video nasty. As the dawn edges closer, Price survives a gunshot only to be consumed by the darkness, a wobbly, evil CGI blob that consumes everything it comes into contact with. The remaining other players escape to freedom and the credits roll. Phew, the nightmare is over. Or is it? Well, no, of course not, because it's on this list. Consequently, the credits scene actually reveals Price on an operating table with plenty of questions left unanswered. All we know is it's 1931 and the inmates are slicing up Jeffrey Rush and his beautiful pencil mustache for all eternity. Is this temporal displacement, alternate reality, predestination? Who knows, but it changed the whole film and not necessarily for the best. Number 8. Curse of Chucky. The Child's Play series debuted in 1988, starring horror icon Chucky, a demented, pervy little killer doll. In the 2013 sequel, Curse of Chucky, he's back for fresh blood, and the whole stabbing plastic doll nightmare begins again. Thankfully, this time an entirely new plucky hero has the responsibility of making sure he goes back to the defects department as homicidally faulty. In the post-credit sequence, we see Chucky, who by this point, by the way, has been burned, shot multiple times, molten down, blown to smithereens, and married to Jennifer Tilly's superb female counterpart doll Tiffany, who is being mailed to the next hapless victim, who just so turns out to be Andy from the very first 3 installments. Chucky is back and raring to kill again, right up until the point where Andy, returning actor Alex Vincent, goes full Ash from the Evil Dead and pulls a shotgun before saying, "Play with this." It's cool in the movie, he means the gun, he means play with the gun and die, Chucky, die, I guess. Number 7. The Thing, 2011. Remakes can be risky business, as treading on hallowed horror ground is usually either very brave or very stupid, and usually not all of them land smoothly, especially if your name is Nightmare on Elm Street. Anyway, John Carpenter's 1982 special effects tour de force The Thing broke so much ground in horror that it was hard to see why anyone would attempt a straight remake, something the studio clearly considered when they inevitably got round to reviving the property. It wasn't great, but as the plot of this CGI-infested reboot rounded up to something resembling a satisfying conclusion, the credits rolled and the horror didn't end there. As the rescue team arrives by helicopter, a lone survivor fires a rifle from a window of the seemingly decimated Norwegian camp, and then a dog escapes into the snow. Suddenly, the whole setup begins to look a little familiar. The post-credits scene actually acts as a direct lead-in to the original movie, revealing everything before as being a prequel. The dog is fleeing right into the start of the 1982 version, carrying the alien virus with it. Number 6. Cloverfield. Released in 2008, directed by Matt Reeves and produced by one-time baby Spielberg clone himself J.J. Abrams, Cloverfield is a monster movie of appropriately massive proportions. Despite the size though, the movie as a whole is pretty straightforward. Through a found footage lens, we follow Rob, Beth, Jason, Rod, Lily, Marlena, and Hood attempting to flee the destruction of the city. A few body-exploding parasites and a curveball Statue of Liberty head later, a few of them actually look like they're about to escape, only to end up danger close as the final explosives drop on Central Park to kill the monster. Everything looks pretty cut and dry, but here comes the post-credits scene, building on the mystery of that falling object in the final scene where a static impaired transmission is heard. Initially, the sound seems meaningless, but played backwards, it reveals a sinister warning with the words proclaiming, "It's alive." Producers were clearly fishing for a sequel, and although 10 Cloverfield Lane shared the universe, John Goodman turned out to be a considerably more manageable monster indeed. Number 5. Constantine. Constantine follows the adventures of the eponymous hero, played by Keanu Reeves, who drinks, smokes, and converses with the dead. Well, when you put it like that, he'd fit right into the house parties I've been to anyway. The thing about John, though, is that he's totally damned, and his only possible salvation is a deal with God, where he exorcises demons in return for a stairway to heaven. Along for the ride is Chaz, a wannabe exorcist, and Shia LaBeouf in an early role before he decided to fight giant robots and keep up with the Joneses. He doesn't do a whole lot, but he does take one for the team during the final boss against angelic upstart Gabriel, who kills Chaz by smashing him against the floor and the ceiling. Fortunately, shortly after this, John eventually outsmarts his enemies, redeeming himself in the eyes of God. After the climax, John is free to live something resembling a normal life, even quitting the cigs and leaving his Zippo lighter on Chaz's grave. However, the very final scene shows this character returning in angelic form, dragging poor John back into the whole mess yet again. Well, theoretically anyway, because Constantine never got a sequel, but it's clear the producers very much wanted it to. Number 4. The Collector. The Collector is admittedly pretty nasty as far as horror films go. The plot follows Arkin O'Brien, a former thief working as a handyman for the Chase family, who reluctantly hatches a plan to steal a ruby from the aforementioned family to pay back his wife's debt. Tragically for him, he picks the absolute worst night to stage such a break-in, as he becomes trapped inside with the Chase family, who are victims of a masked maniac known as the Collector. This big bad lad invites Arkin and Hannah Chase to a deadly game of Saw-style cat and mouse, as they attempt to escape with horrific consequences. 90 gruesome minutes later, and the character does indeed escape with Hannah, leaving the house in flames and the police on the scene. Everything appears well, but everyone knows that horror films are never that simple. Arkin is then snatched by the Collector again in a gripping ambulance ambush, ending with the fate of the hero uncertain as the credits soothe our fractured nerves. The post-credits scene then reveals that the Collector has Arkin locked in a trunk, now part of the collection himself, finally ending the movie, and apparently Arkin's life in the process. Number 3. The Grey. The Grey is a powerful, surprisingly emotional story about survival, and while not technically a horror, the situation can't be described as anything else. Liam Neeson plays John, a lonely man working as a wolf sniper protecting oil company workers in Alaska. Fueled by alcoholism and weighed down with crushing depression, John is on the verge of suicide until a near-fatal plane crash triggers his self-preservation instincts. John and the few surviving men, who are mostly just there to be killed off, stage a desperate attempt to battle both the elements and a hungry, aggressive wolf pack, hell-bent on picking the men off one by one. At the film's climax, John is the last non-wolf standing and makes a final stand against the pack after he inadvertently pissed off the alpha male. Strapping shards of broken liquor bottles to his knuckles like the hardest bastard you know, and with a blade taped to his palm, John faces the boss wolf, reciting a poem his father taught him. Roll credits, the end. The outcome of the fight is unknown at first, but the post-credits sequence shows the heaving, bloody body of the wolf gasping for breath. Whether John survived or not, however, is still left ambiguous. Number 2. The Babysitter 2, Killer Queen. In the original Babysitter, young hero Cole discovers that his babysitter was in fact a member of a satanic cult, which is like the 4th worst thing you can find out about someone looking after your kid. The result was a cheesy but appropriately gruesome young adult horror flick, ending with Cole finding a spine and emerging victorious against the forces of darkness, surviving for the sequel. Annoyingly for him though, so did B, the eponymous queen and deranged killer of this second movie, who seemingly signed the same Hollywood contract, and thus the Babysitter was back for more. When things take a predictable turn in part 2, all hell literally breaks loose yet again, and Cole realizes that B's satanic cult has been resurrected. However, things take an unexpected twist towards the end, and B ends up having a change of heart about her villainous plans, sacrificing herself after being surprisingly touched by the fumbling young love between young Cole and teen squeeze Phoebe. During the post-credits sequence, however, the sand on a beach blows away, revealing B's book of spells left intact, foreshadowing the awaiting curse of the sequel that's bound to hit streaming as soon as the actors are allowed to kiss on set again. It's a classic stinger that sets up a sequel, and to be fair, that's surely not a bad thing for fans of this series. Number 1. Sadako vs Kyako. Monster movie mashups have been a staple of low-budget sci-fi and horror films since the 1950s, with Godzilla vs. the whatever dragging the kids into movie theaters in droves. For this entry though, in the blue corner we have Sadako, the memorable villain from the Ring series, and a girl with equally deadly psychic powers in the red corner, Kyako, the equally creepy and rather more vocal monster from the Grudge series, who'll try to vocal fry you to death if you come within spitting distance of her house. The film climaxes with the protagonists attempting to alleviate both the curses associated with these villains at once by pitting the monsters against each other. The clue is in the film's title, resulting in both baddies falling down Sadako's well. Something emerges from the opening as Toshio, the creepy kid from The Grudge, starts meowing, cue credits. But wait, for one final time, there is indeed more, and the post-credit sequence reveals a brand new monster, an amalgamation of these two beings called Sadakaya, a supervillain now with only one white dress that needs to be dry cleaned. The fate of Yuri and the rest of the cast remains unclear, but rest assured, this will go on and on and on and on, and I am here for it because this was a surprisingly stellar horror flick. So that's our list. Want to know what you guys think down in the comments below. Are there any post-credit sequences I missed off here that completely refamed horror movies that you've seen, and what do you think about this lot? While you're down there, could you also give us a like, share, subscribe, and head over to whatculture.com for more lists and news like this every single day. Even if you don't, though, I've been Josh, thank you for watching, and I'll see you soon.